This is CBN NewsWatch.
Welcome to Newswatch. I'm Mark Martin. Louisiana's newest Republican member of the U.S. House of Representatives has died of complications related to COVID. 41-year-old Luke Letlow was just days away from being sworn in. His death comes amidst a battle over COVID relief and growing concern over hospitalizations and the vaccine campaign. Heather Sells reports.
41-year-old Congressman-elect Luke Letlow died Tuesday night in the intensive care unit of a Shreveport hospital. Across the nation, COVID hospitalizations have hit a record 127,000. And health officials in Colorado have discovered the first known U.S. case of the new variant of the coronavirus, initially found in the U.K. It is considered even more contagious, although not more deadly. There's also concern about the pace of the vaccination campaign. So far, only 2.1 million vaccine doses have been administered, although the Trump administration promised 20 million by year's end.
The effort to distribute and administer the vaccine is not progressing as it should.
On Tuesday, President-elect Joe Biden criticized the distribution, but the administration says there's a lag in reporting and that the federal government can only do so much.
The federal government doesn't invade Texas or Montana and provide shots to people. We support the state and locals in doing that.
In Washington, lawmakers are battling over COVID relief. The big sticking point, stimulus checks. President Trump is pushing to increase them from 600 to 2,000. The House has approved it, and more GOP senators are on board, including David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, both in Georgia's runoff elections next week.
Absolutely. We need to get relief to Americans now, and I will support that.
But on Tuesday, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blocked a move to bring the increase up for a vote. The administration says those $600 checks start going out today, and people should look for them the first week of January. Heather Sells, CBN News.
A group of Republican lawmakers in Pennsylvania says data they reviewed from the November presidential election shows that the numbers don't add up. The disparity was discovered between the vote totals and the number of voters, according to a press release from Pennsylvania Republican State Representative Frank Ryan. They found 6.9 million total ballots were reported as being cast, while DOS Shore System records revealed that only 6.7 people actually voted. The Republican leaders say they already believed election standards weren't followed with the 2020 vote, but these findings raise even more questions about the accuracy of the vote. They say the November 24th certification of the vote was absolutely premature, unconfirmed, and in error. Evangelist Franklin Graham says the upcoming runoff elections in Georgia are so critical that the future of our nation hangs in the balance. He posted, "Christians who believe the Bible and live in Georgia, the soul of our nation is at stake. If conservatives lose control of the Senate, there is nothing to stop the radical agenda of the left. There will not be another chance to get this right." Graham went on to say these two seats will determine whether liberal, socialist-leaning progressives or conservative lawmakers have a majority. The policies supported by those on the left promise to be openly hostile to those who hold Christian beliefs. Later in this newscast, we'll talk with one of the organizers of a huge prayer rally in Georgia leading into the January 5th runoffs. Although the November election may not have turned out the way President Trump and his supporters had hoped, Republicans did well overall, led by successful conservative women candidates with important gains in the U.S. House. CBN's Jennifer Wishon has more.
Of the 14 seats Republicans flipped in the House, 10 were won by women, mostly in urban and suburban parts of the country. As Congresswoman Susan Brooks prepares to retire from Congress, she leaves a legacy after successfully recruiting and helping elect a new slate of conservative women to Congress.
More and more conservative women wanted to raise their hand and say, groups like AOC and the Squad do not represent my views. I need to step up and to put my conservative views and what how I have contributed to my community forward. I need to make sure that the electorate has another choice.
After the 2018 midterms led to huge Republican losses, party leaders vowed to stop the gravitation of women to the Democratic Party. Leaders like Kevin McCarthy and Kathy McMorris Rodgers directed more money to conservative women candidates and made electing them a priority. A record 228 women ran, with 94 winning their primaries.
The women, I think, just had messages that resonated, and they knew their districts.
Republican strategists say this will help change the reputation of the GOP being the party of old white men.
The Republican Party is diverse, and I think that you're starting to see that reflected in the candidate recruitment.
So what can we expect in the 2022 midterms?
I would much rather be Leader McCarthy than Speaker Pelosi or whoever comes behind her.
That's because after the 2010 census, Republican majorities in state houses across the country dominated the drawing of congressional districts. And there are still a number of districts Trump won in 2016 that haven't flipped yet. Add that to the great migration from liberal strongholds as more and more Americans leave states like New York and California. Those states will continue to lose congressional seats that could go to Republican strongholds. For now, Democrats have seen their House majority diminished. And once again, Best says the elites got it wrong.
I think the conventional wisdom in Washington, D.C. and New York City was that President Trump was so unpopular, he was going to lose by a wide margin, and he was going to tank Republicans in the process, and that simply didn't occur.
Meanwhile, Congresswoman Brooks is retiring and will fittingly be replaced by a Republican woman who happened to beat another woman running as a Democrat. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
A Tennessee family is thankful to be alive this holiday season after a fire destroyed their home earlier this month. The mother says she believes God woke her up to discover the fire. Nicole Davidson says she woke up her husband Chris and they were able to fight the blaze to get 2 of their 3 children out of the house, but they could not get to their toddler's room. Chris tried from the outside but could not reach his daughter. He says his 7-year-old son Eli, however, was ultimately able to get through the outside window to rescue his baby sister. Eli told reporters he was scared but did not want his baby sister to die. Wow, what a boy of courage. A GoFundMe account was created for the Davidsons who lost everything. So far, it's raised almost $350,000 for the family. Coming up, it's likened to being buried alive, a life prison sentence for a few minor nonviolent offenses. The flawed law that even many who are tough on crime agree needs to be changed.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to NewsWatch. For decades, tough on crime legislation sent repeat nonviolent offenders to prison with life sentences, many locked up as teens or young adults. Caitlin Burke recently interviewed one former federal inmate about the law that put him behind bars and the fight to get him out.
Really like hell, like how they describe hell. Nobody can hear you screaming, hear your screams. That's really how it is. I mean, you hear people screaming all night, and that's all I used to think about. We're in hell.
At the age of 28, a judge sentenced Herman Tate to life in prison without parole for a low-level, nonviolent drug offense.
Buried alive. Just imagine it. Putting you in a casket and you're alive. But you can stand up and walk around in it. That's what it is. You can't get out.
Tate's sentence fell under the federal three-strikes drug law passed by Congress in the 1980s. It states that if someone is charged with a federal drug crime and already has 2 prior drug offenses, then that's the third strike, and a federal prosecutor can require the judge to impose a mandatory life sentence. Tate's first strike came in 1992 for selling 0.5 gram of crack. His sentence, 6 months probation. He gained his second strike 2 years later. That time, he sold 7.7 grams of cocaine. Sentenced to 5 years in prison, Tate was only required to serve 8 months. Then, in 1998, he struck out, charged with conspiracy to sell cocaine. Tate, however, had never heard of the three-strikes drug law, and since no drugs were found in his possession, he chose to go to trial. The prosecutor filed what's known as an 851 notice.
That means that even if the judge wanted to take pity on you, even if the judge believed that you could be rehabilitated, even if the judge believed that the sentence was too harsh, that sheet of paper meant that you had to receive a mandatory life sentence without parole.
Life.
Wow.
For nothing.
Tate headed to federal prison, where it took 2 years for the gravity of his sentence to sink in.
I keep seeing people going home, and I'm like, man. And I realize, hey, I'm never going home. And it just hit me all of a sudden. And that's when I realized that I had a life sentence in the federal system.
The three-strikes federal drug law covers all 50 states. Many states have gone further, expanding three-strikes laws that impose mandatory life sentences for 3 convictions of certain felonies. In California, for example, the 1994 Three Strikes You're Out law was designed to keep murderers, rapists, and child molesters behind bars. Today, however, more than half sentenced under that law are serving life sentences for nonviolent crimes. Evidence that these three strikes laws can result in unintended consequences. My Angel Cody is an attorney and the director of the Decarceration Collective, a team of women fighting to free people sentenced to life in prison for drugs and end the policies that put them there. Many of her clients were teenagers or young adults when convicted with their third strike, the mandatory life sentence that followed basically erasing the possibility of maturation and growth, stamping them instead as irredeemable.
The most potent example of sort of the human spirit, right, is that we tell someone you're buried alive and you're never going to leave prison. And for the person to still have the audacity and the wherewithal to get up every day and to try to make some meaning of your life, I think is, for me, it's deeply inspiring. It's why I do the work. It also is the most salient example of why we ought to go back and look at these different laws.
When Congress passed the Fair Sentencing Act in 2010, it provided the potential for a lower sentence, but did nothing for those already in prison. Then, in 2018, President Trump signed the First Step Act, which finally allowed the opportunity to reconsider prior sentences. In reading the new law, Tate regained a sense of hope for the first time in nearly 22 years.
And I'm like, oh, Lord, because it fit me. I fit the criteria.
Cody and her team officially requested his life sentence be reduced. This past January, Tate learned of his freedom.
I'm just watching the TV, and my case manager come out and called my name, Tate. Took my earbuds out. I'm like, yeah, what's up? She's like, you need to come to my office right now. I'm like, oh. So I go over there, and she turns around with a big smile on her face. I'm like, what's wrong with you? She said, Tate, you going home. I just started crying. I said, don't play. She said, I'm for real. I said, don't lie to me. And that's when I found out.
Still, an estimated 800 inmates could likely die in prison under the three-strikes drug law. A disproportionate number of them are Black.
There are all these places along the highway towards imprisonment where people get off, right? And then there are on-ramps. And what we've seen is that disproportionately, it's more difficult for African Americans to exit off of that highway, right? And that more of them are on that highway towards mass incarceration and imprisonment. Some of that relates to charging decisions that are made. Some of that relates to the rates of arrest. Some of it relates to community resources that are available.
No legislation reforming the federal three-strikes drug law includes those sentenced to life for marijuana convictions. But Cody believes change is coming.
I absolutely believe that transformative justice will occur. And the reason why is because I think that people are awake and paying attention.
Cody says now is the time for the American people to ask questions and put pressure on our elected officials. That's because voters can make a major impact at the ballot box and be the catalyst that keeps Cody's clients and many others from being buried alive behind bars. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Georgia's runoff election is less than a week away on January 5th. Before the vote, a group of believers is rallying Christians in Georgia and across the country to pray. Charlene Aaron talked with one of the organizers of the Saving the Republic prayer event.
Okay, Dr. Garlow, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We understand that you are co-founder of this exciting prayer event that is happening in Georgia on Saturday. If you could tell us a little bit about what's the motivation behind it and the purpose for this Georgia prayer march on Saturday.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. My co-chair with me is not only my wife, but also Bishop Wellington Boone in Atlanta. So the three of us are the co-chairs together of this Georgia Prayer March. We're going to be marching around the Capitol building, the State House building in Georgia, 7 times like a Jericho march. On Saturday, we start there at 11 in the morning. And for those who want to join online, that's 12 noon Eastern time. The purpose of the prayer is to see the republic saved, to put it in blunt terms. We have a critical election in Georgia, and that election is going to determine the future of America, if we have an America or not. We are not specific regarding candidates, but we are specific regarding issues and policies. And we want to see people elected who will respect babies in the womb and protect their lives, who will respect the definition of marriage, who will respect Israel, who will respect our free market economy that is scripturally, biblically based. We want to see people that believe in tranquility and peace in our communities and don't want to defund law enforcement. We want to see people who care about elections being high integrity and without fraud. These are all biblical issues. In other words, what we're praying is holiness, righteousness, biblical justice, and truth to prevail on the land. So that's the goal of this, and with direct impact upon the elections in Georgia, because they will determine whether or not we can save the republic or not.
Powerful. I understand that you're encouraging not only people who live in Georgia, but all Americans to take part. Why is that important?
Because what happens there is going to affect 49 other states in a way we have never seen. It's really unusual for a state to have both of their senatorial elections the same year. They're generally staggered. They fell together for various reasons. And so now we have the eyes of the world are focused on Georgia. We have prayer calls that we'll have 4, 5, 6, 7,000 people on prayer calls with us for our nation right now. And it's interesting to us. We started just for people in America. These are Sunday and Wednesday night prayer calls we do. And people from all over the world have joined us. All over the world, leaders from about 20, 25 different countries have joined us because they're so concerned about the future of America. And the future of America hangs in the balance on January 5th when Georgians vote. And so we want to see righteousness exalted, truth and holiness and biblical justice. These are important things. Now, we'll meet there at the Georgia Capitol at 11 o'clock for those who can get to the Capitol. And we'll have a preliminary time. Then we start marching at 12 noon. We'll go around the Capitol 7 times. We want to pray down things like abortion. We want to pray down the walls of things like the wrong definition of marriage. We want to pray down anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, anti-Israel. We want to pray down racial prejudice and speak racial healing across our land. We have 7 things to pray for specifically, and people can pray for whatever they want, but it'll all be televised. There'll be a camera in front of the march all 7 times, and that'll be online. They can go to Facebook to our Georgia Prayer March online, or they can go to www.georgiaprayermarch.org. One more time, www.georgiaprayermarch.org, and they can register there to either watch online or they can register there to come and attend in person. And there's a lot of information on that website to help them to understand about it and why we're doing it. We have all 4 candidates in the senatorial races with a listing of how each one of them stands, where their positions are, because we think people ought to know where they are. We're not endorsing or opposing a candidate, but we are endorsing and opposing God's biblical principles for governance.
Man, I know that we all know as Christians, prayer is a very powerful weapon that God has given us. As you guys are praying, marching, this Jericho March on Saturday, what are you hoping comes from all of this? What are you hoping to see?
We want to impact the nation. We want to impact the Georgia election. We want the will of God to be lifted up. We want the word of God to be lifted up. We want righteousness, which exalts the nation, to be lifted up. We want the honoring of the Lord in our midst to be taking place. By the way, we not only are praying, we're encouraging people who can to fast for 3 days, however God designs the fast for them, on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday until the polls close in Georgia. And then we're not only a pray and fast group, but we're also an activation group. We're partnering with Ralph Reed's Faith and Freedom Coalition, and we're encouraging people who live in Georgia to use the last day and a half, that's Sunday afternoon and Monday to knock on doors, and for people across America that last day and a half to phone, to work with Faith and Freedom Coalition. It's a 501c3 compliant organization like we are, and we're asking them to phone people all across Georgia, and they can do that from wherever they live. Makes no difference, and be a part of that in impacting Georgia. So it's a pray and fast, but it's an activation call as well.
Yeah. Dr. Jim Garlow, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about this prayer march that is happening in Georgia on Saturday. And one more time, quickly, give us the website for people who want to find out more information about it. GeorgiaPrayerMarch.org. That's GeorgiaPrayerMarch.org. And when they go online to watch on Saturday, they can go there, or they can go to our Facebook page, Georgia Prayer March, as well. Thank you so much for the privilege of being on. Thank you so much. God bless you.
And bless you.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Popular Christian rock band Skillet's lead singer John Cooper says it's time for Christians, including himself, to speak truth in the face of cultural relativism. He's written a book, Awake and Alive to Truth, Finding Truth in the Chaos of a Relativistic World, and he's intent on driving home truth in an era of biblical apathy. He talked about it on the Edify with Billy Hallowell podcast, as well as in an earlier interview with CBN Studio 5. He said Christians can be so scared to speak the truth that it has caused a crisis and that many people believe they can reach heaven without the help of Jesus. You can see the full Studio 5 interview with Cooper at cbnnews.com. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.